Hi, and welcome to the VR Gaming Podcast, a podcast and commentary about VR gaming, VR news, VR hardware, and VR reviews. I'm your host, Nick Lane, and with me, as always, is Justin Davis. Justin, what's going on this fine Saturday?
Hey, Nick. I'm excited to talk to some adults finally today because I've been talking to a 2-year-old all day. And I'm looking forward to this interview we're going to do.
Yeah, sometimes I play an adult, so I'm happy to try to fulfill that role today. This is a special podcast. We don't really do any interviews ever. We once had another guest on to talk about rhythm games, but this is kind of our first official interview. So I'm really excited, and the focus of today's conversation is about modding games for VR. So taking games that are 2D games and making them playable in VR. We've got a couple guests on, which they go by Fristy and Alchemist. And before I bring them on and have them introduce themselves, I just want to say I think that modding VR games are incredibly important, especially if you're a PC VR player, because Justin and I have been into VR for a number of years now. Justin longer than me. I've been in since 2017. And I can speak for myself where I just have an appetite for full-fledged games. And what we often get in VR are just kind of bite-sized games. Fun experiences, sure, but maybe only a few hours worth. And they're not AAA games. The nice thing about modding PC games that are 2D games is that we can now, it's kind of like a bridge. We can get games that are AAA games into VR. It's a shortcut to that until the gaming space matures to the point where studios are now spending AAA budgets to make VR games. And really the only example that we have, I would argue, is Half-Life Alyx. And especially a couple days ago, that we saw the release of Oculus was showing what games are coming out, and it's all great, but I'm not terribly excited about anything. So I'm really bullish on modding games, and I really appreciate the modding community and what they're doing. So without further ado, I want to bring on Fristy and Alchemist, who they are in particular working on a game called Deep Rock Galactic. It's a game that's been out, I think, since 2018. It's overwhelmingly positive on Steam. It's also on Xbox and I believe PlayStation. So there's a lot of crossplay going on. It has a really healthy community. It gets regular updates. I started playing it last week 2D because their mod isn't out yet, even though there's some beta testing going on. And I really like the game. We'll talk a little bit more about it. But I'm totally into it. I'm really excited for it to come out in VR. So, Fristy, let's start with you. Can you welcome, first of all, thanks for coming on. I know you guys are 6 hours ahead of us. It's Saturday night. Thanks for chatting with us. Can you talk a bit about your kind of background in VR? When did you get into VR? How long you've been in the space? Let's start there.
Oh, definitely. So, well, let's see. I've always been a big gamer. I've definitely always been a big Team Fortress 2 fan. And, one day, I think Palmer Luckey came out with the Oculus, and Valve started experimenting with it. And Team Fortress 2 got an experimental VR mode. And yeah, I really wanted to play it. So it took a while. I didn't get into VR right from the get-go. I think I started with the Oculus Rift Consumer version 1. And one of the first things I did was try out the by then deprecated Team Fortress 2 VR mode. And to my surprise, I noticed that it just didn't want to work on my headset. And I guess that awakened my inner VR modder. And coupled with my slight background in general programming and engineering and all that stuff, I just took the opportunity and I started making a mod for Team Fortress 2 to make it VR. And well, from there on, I eventually got into Deep Rock Galactic, of course. But it started with Team Fortress 2.
Nice, nice. And Alchemist, what's your VR background? What's your VR origin story?
Yeah, so hello everyone. Glad to be here. Well, I think at first I had some friends show me VR a while ago, but yeah, I found it really great and everything, but I did not really have any beefy computer to run it. And also I found it a bit, I don't know, cumbersome to use, having to bring up all the, the wires and everything to make it work. So I thought I would wait for something a bit more wireless. So I was looking upon Project Santa Cruz, which became the Quest 1. Was really hyped by it, and it was actually my first device, my first VR device that I owned. So there, I started really getting into it, playing lots of VR games, trying lots of different experiences with it, doing small game projects with different technologies, like well, Unity, of course. Also tried Godot with Rust language, and then finally Unreal Engine for Deep Rock Galactic. I didn't use Unreal Engine too much before, so it was also quite a learning curve. But well, with we've been starting, I think, in November, if I'm correct. So
I do believe so.
no, when was it done? Don't
No,
remember
I
exactly.
do
It was a
believe
while
I
ago.
do believe I do believe it was in November.
Okay. Well, so yeah, that gave me time to learn the engine. But yeah, other than that, I'm a game developer at Abracam. But it's not. Yeah, we don't do VR games. We do flat games, Feria and Workbook, namely. So yeah, in the day, developing flat games, and then in the evening, working on this mod.
Thank you.
That's
And that,
basically it.
yeah, no. And Fristy, do you have a background in like your day job? Are you in software for gaming or?
At the moment, I'm unemployed and I'm actually doing this mod pretty much full time.
All right. Well, listen. That's good for us in terms of your unemployment status. So, thanks for using your time so we can play this game. I probably should talk very briefly about what Deep Rock Galactic is because I had no idea what this game was. I didn't. The only reason I know about this game is because Justin invited me to the Discord channel. With the what is it called? Justin Flat to VR. Is that the title of the Discord
Yeah,
channel?
flat to VR gaming.
Yeah, so highly recommend. If anybody who's listening to this and you're intrigued about playing not only Deep Rock Galactic but things like Resident Evil, which we talked about before, I highly recommend checking out that Discord channel. But I joined it because Justin invited me, and then I saw back in the fall, the Deep Rock Galactic was going to get a mod, and I kind of was like, oh, this game looks interesting, and it was on sale in Steam, I think like the winter sale, so I picked it up with the anticipation that when it comes out in VR, I'll play it. The game is like it's a co-op game. It's not PvP, so it's up to 4 players, and you are these dwarves that are going on to these different planets, or maybe it's just one planet, and you're doing kind of these mining expeditions. The graphics are pretty simple. They're stylized. There's not like a high polygon count, but it looks really good. Nice lighting effects, and I would say it's for people who like exploration because these worlds are randomly generated every time, and there's different objectives. There might be like protect a drill and get drill from point A to point B, and along the way you're fighting these kind of space aliens on these different planets. A lot of times they're spiders. Another objective might be to mine this certain kind of mineral and get enough of that. And you kind of keep on doing that over and over again. You unlock better guns. You unlock better accessories and skins for your dwarves. And it's just kind of like a really kind of fun co-op experience. And I've been enjoying it because it's chill. And I'm thinking like, wow, this game is fun in 2D. I can only imagine how cool it looks in VR because you kind of go into these dark caves and you're trying to use light to light it up. And there's different classes. There's like a scout, there's a gunner, there's an engineer, there's a driller. So each of the dwarves play a little bit differently. That's the premise of Deep Rock Galactic. I'm curious, Fristy and Alchemist, how did you guys pick that game to focus on?
Maybe I'll start because I think I was the first to. Well, I don't necessarily was the first one to claim the mod for myself, but I think I was the first one to start work on it, right, Alchemist?
Yes, right. Started the
Think,
team basically. Yeah.
yeah, and I think I remember you were the first one to ask to join because the owner of the Flats 2 VR server, um, yeah,
Right.
let's call him Elliot because his full name Elliot Tate is a bit weird to pronounce. I think Elliot came to me and say, "Hey, there's this guy that would really like to work with you on this mod." And I remember from Team Fortress for my Team Fortress 2 VR days that I can really use some extra help. So that's how Alchemist came into the team. Anyway, I started playing Pro Galactic a while before it was even possible to mod into VR. And I just saw so much potential in the game. Like one of the first things I noticed was the diegetic user interface on the guns. And diegetic here means that you can basically see the ammo count in your clip. You can see it on the weapons themselves. I saw little touches like a lot of the user interface, but I remember one of the first things that sparked that I really want to make a VR mod out of this were the flares, because you can throw flares to light up the cave, and I thought, man, this would be so great if you could manually throw them with your hand. And from there it kind of snowballed into me just wanting the game more and more into VR. So maybe one last thing is um, what really sparks this feeling of I want to make this game into VR for me is just the general atmosphere and the thought, the fantasy of being inside the game. Like with Team Fortress 2, I always imagined I don't know how many of the listeners know Team Fortress 2, but for Team Fortress 2, I always imagined you are at the last point, the other team has almost completed the objective, you're defending, there's this James Bond type siren going off, and the announcer is saying 1 minute left of the mission, and all your team is dead, and you're alone defending the objective, and you're in this massive Cold War bunker, and doesn't it get you hyped to be inside such a situation? Like it got me totally hyped. And I imagined something similar for Deep Rock. I imagined you're in a cave, it's dark, your team is dead, there's this swarm coming, your ammo is almost out, and you've got this banging music. Yeah, it's things like that that really spark the motivation for me.
Yeah, I think what you're hitting on is the atmosphere of that game, and that game has great atmosphere that I can envision how cool it is in VR, because a lot of times the game plays with like light and darkness a lot. You're in a dark cave, and like you, as you mentioned, the idea of throwing flares to light it up, and then suddenly you see everything that's in front of you, whether good or bad. How when I play this game in 2D, and 2D games don't terrify me, or they're like emotionless in that sense, versus like playing a game in VR, which can definitely kind of spook me, scare me. Is this game pretty intense in VR from a perspective of being in a dark cave? What's it like?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
like the first time I tried the mod personally, I tried it on my own alone in the cave, and when I ran out of flares, I was there just in the dark tunnel, and it was the first time I felt the game was spooky, kind of. It's really different because you in VR you feel like you are really in a cave. It's not just projected in front of you; you are really there, and when you move your head around, you see things as if you were standing in that dark tunnel, which really adds something interesting. And so it it can be a bit spooky, but it's not very scary either. But it's more intense, I would say. Yes.
Yeah,
Especially
I
with X-Forms.
can't stress enough how much it really feels like you're inside a real cave with lots of space bugs in it. Especially when you turn off your headlight. There's they really did such a great job with the lighting. It really it just feels like, yeah, like a dark cave, like it should feel.
Are there any issues with the lighting that you weren't able to reproduce in VR? Like, like some atmospheric, or some special lighting that was hard to get to work right?
Thankfully, it all seems to work perfectly,
Oh, okay.
qua lightning. Though at the moment, and this is something we will probably fix very soon, manually thrown flares don't get replicated from client to server, which is
All right.
just a networking issue, which we will fix in the future.
Okay. So only the person throwing the flare sees the flare.
At the moment, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Well, the host, when it's the host that throws them, everyone sees them.
Oh,
Not
okay.
when it's a simple client.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
problem.
Yeah, and also the scouts flare gun works for everyone, thankfully.
Yeah, Justin, you should definitely pay attention to this game, see if you can grab it on sale. I mean, it's to me, it's worth it at the price point. It's really good, and I think I'm sure it helps playing this game in 2D and figuring it out, and then being able to just to jump in the game and execute on it, because it's not like a complicated game, but there is a learning curve, which is it's fun to learn in the game, because it's I think that's part of the game.
I wish listed it. I think back when I heard about this mod, but yeah, I need to buy it.
What headsets are you guys using when you're doing that and you're playing this game?
Personally, I have mainly the Quest 2 because it's just really convenient with the wireless. But I also have IMAX headset. But I don't use it a lot for development, but when playing, it's also great to have this nice field of view. It adds even more to the immersiveness of the game. It's really great with that game, I think.
Are
But
you
Quest
using?
2 works
Sorry.
really great.
Are you using index controllers with the Pimax?
Yes.
Okay,
we
good.
do.
Oh, perfect. There we go.
I've only got a Quest 2 that's working at the moment. The the old Rift CV1 broke down a while ago.
Yeah, what graphics cards are you guys using? Because performance is like a huge component of modded 2D games into VR, right? Like if this game was made natively in VR and built from VR, it wouldn't be an issue. I'm sure it would run great. Again, the graphics are kind of simplistic but stylized with a lot of the kind of wow moments in terms of the graphics, I think, coming from the atmosphere and the effects. But when you try to translate a game that was just built with 2D in mind to VR, and then performance gets wonky. So what can you guys tell us about that?
So me, I'm using a 3070, but I know Fristy was using a much older card, and it was also running pretty well with it.
I
Was
was
it a
using
1080?
1070.
1070 even, yeah. And what's great also is you can use tools like VR Performance Toolkit, and it really works super well with Deep Rock Galactic in VR. And it's Fristy who told me about it, so I tried it, and really it's so smooth right now. It's really great.
Yeah, we used to have. Well, it was only for one update really that we had some performance issues that came down to a bug somewhere. But by
Right.
now, most people, well, pretty much everyone that plays it says that the frame rate is pretty smooth. Even though sometimes they have to play at low settings. But one thing that I'd like to make sure is that there are different kinds of ways to mod a game into VR which affect the performance. Like for example, Luke Ross, his real mods, those use the most expensive technique, the alternate eye rendering. While what we're doing for our mods is mainly reactivating Unreal Engine's native VR capabilities, which means that we get a lot more performance than we would get if we use the alternate eye rendering method.
Yeah, that alternate eye rendering method, I'm not a big fan of that. Because I've tried a lot of his mods, and it's kind of hard to play him. I had a good time with Horizon Zero Dawn, but most of his other mods, it kind of looks like reprojection the whole time, that alternate eye rendering. And he just announced that he's coming out with an Elden Ring mod next week, but I'm worried that's gonna run like crap. So that's all.
Yeah, I've never played one of Luke Ross's mods, but I will definitely try out the Elden Ring mod. I've been playing that non-stop the last weeks.
I'm wondering what is the hardest part about modding a 2D game into VR, in your opinion?
The 2D menus. Right, Alchemist?
Yeah, that's probably true. There are so many different ways it can just not work, or work in most cases, but there is
or
this
even
small edge
worse.
case that breaks.
Hey, even worse, like one menu halves your frame rate, one menu teleports you into outer space, and there's no way you can get back. I know because I've tried pretty much everything. There's another menu that traps you into hell along with Carl, and there's... In the best case, it just doesn't want to work. In the worst case, it'll mess up the game.
Yeah, I'm wondering. So the creators of the game is what is it? Ghost Ship Games. Are you guys in communication with them at all? Like, are they providing any help or support? What's that relationship like, if there even is one?
I think
it's just
Alchemist...
Okay, well, I mean, I would just say that I'm not personally in contact with them, but I think Fristy is with
I think,
one
yeah,
of the
which... Well, it started via... Well, originally the game wasn't VR moddable, because the developers have to enable something for us to make the VR mod possible. So Elliot started a thread on Reddit asking people if they wanted a VR mod to be made, if they had any interest. The developers eventually saw it, and they enabled the VR plugin. And that's when some kind of communication started between the general servers. And I think eventually, maybe it was me, maybe it was Kit or Kozro, eventually we got into contact with the community manager. And I'm pretty sure he proposed that when we feel our mod is ready, we can do a playtest with one of the gameplay designers and get our mod approved, possibly. That's at least what I expect will happen.
That's awesome. Do you have any insight of their appetite for VR? Do they, from your limited interactions, do they seem enthusiastic about it?
I remember they are... Well, don't quote me on this, but from what I remember, they are very enthusiastic, or pretty enthusiastic. But I think they tried doing VR in-house one time, and they weren't so sure it would be a good idea for them as a company to do. But for us as a mod, I think they are pretty enthusiastic of the concept.
Yeah, that's funny. So they're getting some free labor. I mean, it would blow my mind if they weren't enthusiastic. The only reason I own this game is because it's going to be in VR, and it's a great 2D game. I'm happy that you guys are working on it. It's funny. I look at this game. It's like, man, the way the game is, the style and the graphics. They could totally, if they wanted to, they could figure it out, put this on like the Quest 2, and probably make a ton of money because it's such a fun co-op game, and it's pretty unique in terms of its experience. But I'm glad that they're essentially gave you guys the green light, and you're making this happen. What motivates you guys to do this? Because this is like, you could just be like, me and Justin, and just have fun and play games. Why spend a lot of your free time doing modding a game and for no money?
Yeah, because I want to play the game in VR, and no one else was making the mod.
Yeah, someone has to do it. But well, I mean, personally, it's also like a nice technical challenge. It's the perfect occasion to finally get to learn Unreal Engine and yeah, learn really lots of things in the process. And yeah, it's pretty fun also to do, just like as a hobby. It's just a nice thing to spend time on, and even when sometimes stuff don't want to work, and you lose 1 or 2 weeks on something silly, but so it can be a bit frustrating at times. But overall, it's really cool to do, and it's also very motivating to see so many players who are really hyped about the mod and who are following us, and yeah, knowing that you don't just do this for yourself, you do it for all those players who want to play it in VR, and it's really great. And I cannot
Uh,
wait to get the mod out and see people's reactions.
Indeed. Shout out to all our fans out there. You guys really keep me going, and I'm sure all the other devs as well.
Well, I'll do what I can
Totally.
to help you guys. On their Discord page, they have a donate channel. You can do a link, which I think is great, because anytime somebody doesn't have like a donate thing, I'm like, man, I want to support. And the way you guys are phrasing it is like, buy you guys some coffee. So I'm happy to do this after the show, and if you guys appreciate modders, I'd recommend it as well to take care of these guys and help them out. This game I'm looking at in the Steam reviews. Okay, so the release date says May 2020. It has over 100,000 reviews, so there's a large community behind this game, and I was playing the other day, and I was telling the person I was playing with, it was just a random person, and I was like, yeah, I got this game because they're making a VR mod for it, and the person's like, wow, he's like, I would get VR just to play this game in VR. And I think that's so cool because everybody has like a favorite game, and there's a lot of people that aren't in VR yet, and it's games, it's scenarios like that will help get more people into VR. I think so. It's really cool. Appreciate what you guys are doing. And
Oh, thank you.
one thing before I forget, I asked you guys in chat, and you guys are trying to implement bHaptic support, if I'm not mistaken.
I can't make any promises about that because the plugin system for modded Unreal Engine 4 games is kind of borked. But we did recently maybe find a way to do it, and there's definitely the enthusiasm to do it.
Awesome. I liked that one of the mods I played was GTFO, and it was cool that they had bHaptic support. Of course, the big update that came out for GTFO in December broke the existing mod, so they've been able to put out a beta version, but they still haven't re-released kind of the mod of that. But regardless,
really? Alchemist?
yeah.
Because
Yeah, well,
Alchemist works
uh,
on that, right?
well, I did the bihaptic support of GTFO actually.
Dude,
uh, but
God bless you. That bHaptic support in that game is awesome. Like, it is so cool.
thank you.
Like, especially in the intro where you're rumbling and they're like diving you into it.
Yeah, that elevator sequence. It took
I
me
had no idea. That's
such
awesome. Dude, I love you. Thank you so much.
I'm glad you like it. It's really nice.
I bought it, but I
Uh,
still haven't played it yet. So is that mod still not working?
It's in
well,
beta.
yeah, as you said, there is a beta version at the moment,
Okay.
and it's still in beta mode, but it's totally playable. It's just that the performance isn't as great as well as before, I would say.
Oh, all right.
The previous version was running a bit better, and also like the water, when you have water in a level, it's really eats up all the performance, and there are a few crashes. Like if you start a second game just after the first one, it crashes. But it's all stuff that when you know, well, you can work around it. Like you just finish a game, you reload, you reboot the game, and then you're good to go. So it's not too much of a problem. But I understand why it's still in beta.
Okay.
But you can totally play it. It's
All
still
right.
great.
How close do you guys think you are to releasing the mod for Deep Rock Galactic? Do you have a sense of that?
Well, I think there are some differences in opinion between the development members for that. I'd like to release it a little bit earlier, while I think Alchemist wants it to be a bit more polished, right?
Well, I don't know about polish, but there are still a few, I think, major things that don't work. Like all mission types don't work, for example.
Yeah, that's
The
a
tree
good point.
dozer doesn't work, and there are. Yeah, I just sent a list of points like the EPC doesn't work either. That weapon. The bosses widgets are really like at the edge of your vision, so you cannot see what it does, but you cannot see the life of the bosses. You just see part of it, and it's a bit weird, stuff like that. But I mean, mostly we should be feature complete more or less, like or having all mission types working and all weapons probably. But then the polishing, I'm not against releasing it before it's polished enough. I think we're pretty close. If we really focus on the main things, yeah, we can probably do a better. I don't know, maybe a few weeks, firstly. I don't know what you.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic about it. We already listed some of the features that we need to finish first. I think the big ones for me are to have the playtest with the developers first and get the mod approved so we can do some networking stuff. And after that, it's just adding the new weapons and doing a little bit of polishing.
Yeah, awesome. It's funny how you guys have different opinions on that, because I think Justin and I are a little bit different. Like when a mod gets released for 2D to VR, he'll jump in immediately and play it, and I'm like, let me know when it's good. Let me know when it's like working like really good, because I struggle with jank, and I just want that best experience. Now,
Oh man, I love the jank. I love jank. I love seeing the pixels on the textures in my VR games. I love the feeling of just being inside of a game.
Yeah, and
I don't
and
mean jank like that. I don't mean jank like that, but you know.
I want to play it and then talk to the developer and give them not that I'm a programmer, not at all, but like at least give them feedback and suggestions and stuff. So I don't mind. Yeah, that's why I don't mind playing the early builds.
There you go, man.
I have a few technical questions.
Yeah, go for it, please.
All right. So this game runs in Unreal Engine 4. And when I was looking at the game, watching videos, I watched some of you guys' videos when you're playing it in VR, and I was watching you throw flares and stuff. But the game's graphics reminded me a lot of a game that I love, Outer Wilds, which also has a great VR mod. So I was surprised that Outer Wilds is a Unity game, and this game is an Unreal Engine 4 game. I was wondering if you guys have any opinions on the differences of modding Unreal Engine 4 versus Unity.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you do that before, Alchemist?
Yeah, well, I mean, GTFO is Unity, so I digged a bit into it. It's using Bepinex to do the injection. So it's actually pretty different because you say so in Unity with Bepinex you can just replace functions, kind of. So you know functions. It's like something that you call to equip a weapon or reduce the life. So just a set of changes, you could say, or retrieving a value even. So you can replace functions and say, okay, no, you will not do what the base game does. You will do this instead. Or you can say, before calling that function, first execute my little code around here, my VR code, and then just keep on going with the normal game function. And it's really convenient. But you can also register on any function, which is really nice to get bHaptics working, for example, because you want to always trigger on events, like you get shot somewhere, an explosion nearby happens. You want to be able to register on that. And in Unreal Engine, with what we're doing at least, you cannot really replace function. You can just
you can only add to the base game, right?
Yes, you can only add, That's basically it. You can just say, okay, when I press this button, I will call my own blueprint code, but you cannot really modify the existing code per se.
You can't modify the existing code, but for example, we do take one of the weapons out of your flat hands and into your VR hands, so there's still some room for manipulation.
Right. You add code over the existing one, or you can sometimes bypass stuff. But yeah, it's a bit technical maybe, but
Okay, so
a pretty big difference.
so does one have better performance than the other?
I'm not entirely sure about this, but I think one of the reasons VR Performance Kit works so well is because it fixes some bugs in common bugs in Unreal Engine 4 VR mods. So I'm guessing Unity VR mods might work a bit better out of the box. But that's just my guess.
Is that toolkit some sort of plugin for Unreal Engine?
It's just it's something on GitHub. I think someone on the Flat Screen to VR server came on it, and it's very easy to install. Just drag and drop 2 files.
Is that for anyone to use, not just the VR dev?
That's for anyone, yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I thought maybe it was used for making games. Okay.
No, it's really easy. It's just basically placing 2 files next to the executable, and that's it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it works with Unity and Unreal Engine, I believe.
All right. I'm gonna have to look for that. So then I have another question. I've noticed in a lot of VR mods, like sometimes reflective surfaces, like it could be like an icy surface or maybe a metallic surface doesn't look right. You know, I think maybe it's rendering in one eye but not the other. And I was wondering if you guys have dealt with that issue, and if I'm just curious what causes it, and if there's any way to fix it.
I haven't dealt with any of. I know these problems exist in our mod, but I don't think I've ever tried to fix them yet. Did you, Alchemist?
No, I haven't fixed it, but it happens with one or two things, like maybe mostly.
It's mainly with post-processing effects, right?
Right. Yes, but it's as you say. It's one eye is rendering correctly, and the other one it just sees the other eye's perspective, basically something like that.
Yeah.
So
again, this is from a few months ago. But if I remember correctly, Kit knew of some ways to fix those things.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I always wondered because made for VR games don't usually have that, but then a lot of these flat to VR mods have that issue. So I was just curious. And then my other question was, I was wondering, were full 3D weapon models already there, or did you have to do artwork to render all the sides of it? You know, because in this mod, people are going to be rotating the guns, 360 degrees and all over the place. Whereas I haven't played the game, but I'm guessing in the game you don't see every part of the guns.
Thank God the weapons are already fully 3D modeled.
Oh, that's awesome.
It wasn't that way for Team Fortress 2, and I still have to fix that when I resume work on that mod.
Oh, wow. So what, like the undersides of the guns aren't there? Something like that?
Yeah, like the sides, and it's even rendered differently. It has a different field of view, and there's... The Team Fortress 2 mod has its own fair share of weird rendering problems.
Nick might be back.
I'm back. I'm wondering, Justin, do you have any other technical questions that you wanted to ask?
No. Yeah, those were but he might have been saying something else. Sorry, I might have cut him off.
I was just trying to mention that in the Source engine, for some weird reason, they've got a different scale for the map than for the player. So either you scale the VR so that the map feels too small, or either you scale the VR so that the players feel too small, and it's a really weird issue.
Right.
I'm glad that the Unreal Engine doesn't have that issue.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I guess my last question for you guys is, what game would you like to work on next? What do you think would be a great game to work on to bring to VR?
Team Fortress 2, definitely. That's always been my little baby, that project.
Yeah, for me, it would be a big project because it's not a very known engine, but I think the Dishonored series would be awesome in VR, and also Metro. It would be the games I would look into, but yeah, it's way harder than doing it for games that are made with Unity or Unreal Engine. So that will probably not happen, but yeah, playing Dishonored in VR is kind of a dream.
So
We can dream.
the Metro games
Yeah.
are using a different engine.
Yes. Yeah, Metro Exodus, what does it use again? It's 4A engine. It's basically a
4A, okay.
proprietary engine.
Okay.
You know, I take that back. I got a couple other questions, but they're really, really quick. What are your favorite? What's your favorite native VR game designed for VR from the ground up?
I think that's really difficult, but yeah, the one support, the other support. I think one that I really appreciate is Until You Fall, just because it's so well done, the melee combat system in that game.
I'm so bad at that game. It's so
Really?
hard. Yeah, it's so hard for me.
It's
I'm
I
not
don't
fast.
know.
I'm not fast enough to react, to the
Oh
blocking.
yeah, the ducking can get pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, it's really hard to say because I like to play lots of different games and not really for such a long time because I like to try all kinds of experiences. But I would say if I had to pick one, it's not very original, but it would be Alex because it was such a great experience and it also has really nice haptic supports, which adds a lot. And with the modding, you always have new experiences you can play with it, and it's really a cool thing. But if I had to pick smaller games, there's
Hyperdash
11
maybe?
table tennis. Sorry?
Hyperdash maybe?
Yes. Oh, yes. Hyperdash, of course. Yes. In multiplayer games, yeah, that would be my number one pick. Hyperdash. I've spent.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I played that game for much longer time than Alex even. Yes.
yeah, that's a fun game. I kind of got into it like pretty big for a month, and then I think I got distracted by some other game, but that's a fantastic game, Hyperdash.
And there are tons of smaller ones. Like Jupitergrad is really such a great game also.
I
don't know if
agree.
It's not very known, but it's really awesome. And they announced a second one. I don't know when, but I can't wait to play it.
It's getting late. I really appreciate your guys' time. If I can ask one more question, and then it doesn't have to be a super long answer, but what are your thoughts on the current state of VR? And I'll elaborate on that. Like, do you think I'm guessing you don't think VR is dead. Do you think that in a couple years we're gonna see an explosion of VR on PC? Do you think we're like 10 years away to seeing AAA games on PC? What are your thoughts around that?
My dream has always been to make some of the best VR games possible, which is why I really want to finish this Deep Rock Galactic and Team Fortress 2 games. So I'm guessing I'm trying to make the killer apps myself, and we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah, I think VR is really heading in a very good direction, and I see more and more people knowing about it. And yeah, it takes a while to really take off, but I think we're getting there.
Awesome.
So-
I appreciate that, guys. Thanks so much for coming on. We'll get this posted in the Discord, so all the people who are following along the game, they can hear you guys talk about. Is there before you guys head off? Is there anything that we didn't ask that you'd like to communicate about the work, either in Deep Rock, Galactic, or modding in general?
I'd like to give a big shout out to the Flat Screen 2 VR modding Discord server. They really helped get everything off the ground. This mod, small modding career and everything. It's such a great server. I really everyone who's interested in VR should join it, really.
Yeah, exactly what Fristy said. It's a great server and people are very nice and they really care about the project and super motivated and everything. It's great.
Awesome.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah, thanks
and
again,
thank you
guys.
for the invite.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you.
sure. Thanks for what you do. All right. Well, you guys are welcome to stay on. Justin and I are just going to go through to conclude the podcast. Just going to go through the news for the month, where basically Justin reads the news and we can comment. You guys are welcome to stay on. You're welcome to drop off. I know it's late, so we'll go from there. So, Justin, what do we got in terms of the news for the month?
Okay, so the big games that came out since our last podcast, I'm just going to talk about those really fast. Moss Book 2 came out for PSVR. It hasn't come out for PC. I'm waiting for that, so I haven't played it. I did play Moss, though. I replayed that just to familiarize myself with it, and I did the DLC. So anyway, the next game was Green Hell, came out on Quest, and supposedly from what I'm hearing, it's actually pretty good. And they did some sort of trick where they were able to increase the performance on Quest 2. I don't know if it's a Quest 2 exclusive, but they did something to increase the performance. I can't think of what it's called, but it's some sort of trick where they're only doing 45 frames per second, but then there's some algorithm that's able to bump it up to maybe 90 with some sort of trick that doesn't make it sacrifice the quality too much. So then Cosmonious High came out, and I got a free key, and I played that. Cosmonious High, yeah, that was, it's kind of a kiddie game. Warplane, but it wasn't. It was a kiddie game like
Sorry,
Job
one
Simulator.
Sec, Justin. Sorry, Fristy, were you trying to say something? I had muted you quickly, but did you have something to add about the Quest?
Yeah, just that the Quest 2 performance improvement they have is some kind of improved Oculus proprietary space warp thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's only for the Quest 2, of course, as far as I remember.
Have you guys used
they
it?
do have a PC version.
Have you guys used this Quest 2 performance
Technology?
Yeah.
No, our mod will only be playable on PC, so we can't use that.
Okay.
I think
Alright.
I think it's for Oculus native games or things using the Oculus runtime. We use Steam VR.
Okay. All right. So then Warplanes Battles Over Pacific came out this month, and we got keys, but we're not gonna have time to talk about that. Ultra Wings 2 came out for PC. It came out on Quest, I think maybe last month. The Living Remain is a zombie campaign game that got a lot of good reviews, and Best Forklift Operator came out, but I think it's only supports Oculus right now. I haven't tried that. So a few days ago, the MetaQuest Gaming Showcase happened. It was April 20th. It's formerly known as the Oculus Gaming Showcase, but they've changed the name to MetaQuest. So now they're definitely done with PC, it sounds like. So the games on that were Saints and Sinners Chapter 2 Retribution. They showed a trailer of that. I'm excited for the PC version of that. Then they showed NFL Pro Era, which is a first-person where you're a quarterback. It reminded me of that VR Sports Challenge game that came out for the Rift, like back in early VR, like 2016 or 2017. Then Among Us VR, they showed a trailer of that that's never been shown before. Then Red Matter 2, a trailer for that. I don't think that's ever been announced until that showcase. And Aspire 2, the sequel to Aspire 1, which Aspire 2 I think is going to have co-op. And then Moss Book 2, they showed a trailer of that, but that's a PSVR game right now. Then Ruinsmagus, some sort of RPG-ish game that I don't really understand. It was kind of anime-ish. And then they showed Cities VR, which we already know about. Then they showed footage of the Resident Evil 4 VR Mercenaries update. And then they said, this is out now. So you can download that Mercenaries update now. I think it's pretty much just wave shooter type stuff. I don't know.
There's not enough wave shooters in VR, so
Exactly,
thank you.
yeah, no. And Bone Lab was announced. We've been waiting for this for a long time. The Stress Level Zero had a new game they're developing. It's for Quest and PC, and it's called Bone Lab. And like the big difference between this and Boneworks is that it looked very similar, but it said there's like modding support built into it, so I'm assuming people can build their own levels pretty easily, and so there'll be a lot of like user content for that. And then they announced Ghostbusters VR. And they showed a trailer of that, but the trailer said in-engine footage, but not real gameplay. And the footage looked way better than anything Quest 2 could do. So I'm curious, actually, from these guys, when something says in-engine, but it looks way better than that, what does that really mean?
Well, you can still use engines to render cutscenes and everything, so it definitely might have not been real time.
Yeah.
Or they might just run it on a PC with like 10 RTX 3090s or something.
That's what I thought. I was like, all these games that are coming out for Android, Quest, aren't they all being developed on a PC first?
I can't really say anything about that at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they are. Yeah, it's just, they must have pretty beefy graphic cards for AAA games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then some other news. I don't know if you guys saw this. The VR Air Bridge, it kind of got leaked in Oculus PC drivers, and then somebody found a manual online for this VR Air Bridge thing, and so it sounds like it's coming out. It's going to be a USB dongle that you plug into your PC, and then you can get a direct wireless connection from your Quest 2 to your PC, and you don't have to go through your router. So you should get better performance.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and
they have a date on that?
There's no date. Carmack months and months ago was talking about wanting to do something like this. So, but nah, I don't know when that'll come out. So then there have been updates about the Half-Life 2 mod. So they've put out videos where the vehicles are working now. They have the gravity gun working. They said haptics are working, and there's an Alex gun menu, like a radial gun menu to change your weapon. So it's looking like that's getting pretty close to release. Do you guys know anything about that mod?
Oh, I happen to be in the servers of those developers. They originally included me because of the Team Fortress 2 VR mod, so I had a little experience with the Source engine. Sadly, I haven't been active in that server for months now, but if any of them are listening, I really wish you guys the best.
Okay, cool.
Now, as for their progress, I remember in the beginning a major issue they had was converting all their new fancy maps, which were made for the CSGO version of Source. So they had to do a lot of engine work in the beginning, which I guess they might have finally been over now that they've been doing all these gameplay stuff. And one important thing is that they are continuing the old Half-Life 2 VR mod, so they probably already have a lot of work already done for them.
Okay, cool.
Which means they might just be in the polishing phase right now, I guess.
I hope so. All right, so Walkabout is getting a Labyrinth, like the movie from the 80s, and Myst courses. The game Myst. So they're coming, I think, in the summer. So that's something we didn't cover last time. And Cities, so as far as releases, Cities VR is coming out April 28th on Quest. Requisition VR is a 4-player zombie survival game with crafting. And in the trailer,
is that a Quest game or a PC or both?
Requisition?
Yeah.
That's a PC game. It's on Steam. And so you can take like a baseball bat and then attach a poster to it and like attach and then tape things to that. And like you can make all sorts of crazy weapons and stuff, which look pretty cool, pretty unique. That's coming out. It says April. I don't know if it's going to get delayed. So Fract was a PSVR exclusive and by, I think, End Dreams. And now it's coming to PC VR on May 5th. and I played the demo for PlayStation VR. It's really colorful, and I thought it was pretty cool. And one thing that was unique about it is that you could grab like walls in front of you and hold them and like use them as cover, where you could just like pull yourself down really fast and then come back, pull yourself up really fast, which was pretty cool when you're in a gunfight with some enemies. Little Cities is coming out May 12th. I think it got delayed for Quest. It's funny that the Cities VR and Little Cities are coming out around the same time. They might have pushed the date out to be further away from Cities VR, because they were originally going to launch almost like the same week. Then it just got announced that F1 22 is coming out July 1st with VR support. That's a game by Codemasters and Electronic Arts. I think it's the first F1 game that's getting VR support. And as I said earlier, Elden Ring is going to get a VR mod by the end of next week, according to Luke Ross. And the last stuff I have is Super Kit To The Top got a trailer for PSVR. They haven't announced it for any other systems. So it's the sequel to The Top. To The Top is one of my favorite VR games of all time, and so I'm excited about that. But I don't want to play it on PSVR. I want to play it on PC. But PSVR 2 is coming out, we think now, sometime 2023. So I mean, that'll be a while. And then as already mentioned, Jupitergrad 2 is coming out. I don't think there's a release date, but it's going to have, this time it'll have enemy combat, whereas the first one, I don't remember there being any enemy combat. You just kind of, it's similar to Windlands, where you have these like hook shot things you shoot at, but they have plungers on the end. And the swinging mechanic is great. It feels great. The first one, you're mostly just like trying to avoid obstacles, and you're solving puzzles, and you're avoiding, saw blades and things like that. It's coming to Quest and PC VR, so the sequel is going to have enemy combat. And the story was was great. The whole like Cold War Russian theme and the music, I really liked. So I think that's all I have. I don't know if you guys want to add anything.
I just got a quick correction. So I looked up Requisition VR because I was intrigued by your description. And first of all, I was kind of blown away by the screenshots. It looks like really good graphic-wise, but I guess they said early access is in September. So.
That must have changed recently, because it used to say April.
Yeah, so it's going to be a while. But hey, listen, get it right. I'm fine. It looks like it's going to be like a Left 4 Dead kind of game, but just 4-player co-op. So we'll see. I like that genre. Do you guys, Fristy and Alchemist, you want to add anything to the news? Anything that we might have missed, or things that you're excited for that are coming up?
Well, you already mentioned Bone Labs. What else?
I think that was a pretty good summary.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Good job, Justin. Crushed it as always. All right. Well, listen, I'm gonna wrap things up. I think that was a great podcast. Again, like I'm super interested in what you guys are doing, following along. Justin, grab that game. We'll play sometime in 2D, and I'll get you acquainted with it. But
will do.
Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks again to Fristy and Alchemist, and we will catch you next month. Take care.